Hello, and this is going to be the guide of what skills to get for Succession. And when I say that, what I mean is Wizard can choose between two different fireball explosions, two different meteors, two different residual lightnings, lightning storms, and so on. So I will mostly be going over different pros and cons. I'll do Fireball Explosion, and I'll talk about different pros and cons in PvE and PvP for each of the skills. And I'll go skill by skill. So first of all, Fireball Explosion. One of them does less damage, but does a knockdown on good hits. The other one has super armor, does more damage, and does not do any CC. So it's pretty self-evident that the choice for PvP is going to be the knockdown one, and the choice for PvE is going to be the higher damage one. I don't think I really need to go too much into why this is the case, but a long range knockdown is both really good as a combo initiator, as a combo extender, and as kind of ranged CC poke that makes it hard for someone to engage you. So yeah, this is one of the, I don't want to call it a no-brainer since there are some scenarios where this could be nice in PvE and this other one could be nice in PvP, but yeah, for the most part, you really want to get this one for PvP, the one that does the knockdown, and this one for PvE. And I'll talk a little bit about the CC extensions that you can do in a different videos or later. I haven't decided yet. So the Meteor, this one, you choose between the old one that has the same, almost the same damage, I think the damage is a little bit different, the same defensive utility, and the same CC, and between a new one that does considerably more damage, casts a lot faster, but has a smaller AoE, and only has forward guard, rather than forward guard during the charge up part and then into super armor. So this one does not do any CC, as you probably guessed, whereas the old one does. Now, it's difficult to decide in PvP which one to go with, because the new one has the advantage example of being able to, you can do an Earth response into a Meteor, and then into stuff to extend the CC more. Whereas you wouldn't be able to do that with the old one because it's slower. And it would also extend the CC too early, even if it could be used in time. It might barely be able to be used in time. And it would also do a lot less damage. So this one is incredibly useful in a lot of PvP combos for that reason. Like, let's say you could also get, it's really useful in any PvP combo I can think of. It resisted the knockdown. And whether you get a stiffen into a knockdown first, whether you get a floating first, whether you get a freeze first, is pretty much always useful. Because a stiffen into a knockdown, you could do, let's say, 2 fillers and then an extender, then more extenders, then Meteor as your finisher. And it didn't cast because it was on cooldown. And you can do, actually I'll do it now to demonstrate why this wouldn't be practical to do with the other one. Like, let's say you get a stiffen into a knockdown, into fillers, into an extender. If you use the longer one, then the opponent would be able to get up and would take considerably less damage. So yeah, I very strongly recommend neither of them. A lot of these are really going to depend on your personal preference. Since this is one of the very few ones that's sort of a no-brainer, a lot of these, yeah, are really going to depend on your personal preference for PvP. For PvE, this one's a clear choice. But for PvP, I really don't have to talk much about PvE. It's pretty simple for PvE, but I'll just say which one's better. PvE, this Fireball Explosion. PvE, this Meteor. PvP, this Fireball Explosion. PvP, it's really up to you. So now anyways, onto the Residual Lightning. This one has super armor. They both do pretty similar damage, but this one takes longer to cast. And this one does a bound, has no protection, and casts very quickly. this one that you see here, after the lightning bolt was the Residual Lightning. Whereas this one looks like this. Lightning bolt, second lightning bolt, that, and then that. And the second lightning bolt is the first part of the Residual Lightning. It's kind of a bizarre thingy. Actually, before they buffed it with this old one, you would have to do 2 lightning bolt casts first. If you push SF and then you hold F, it does 2 lightning bolts into the residual, into the lightning storm. Whereas if you do SF and then you hold right click, it'll just go straight into the residual. So the high damage, they're both high damage. The fast cast bound one is going to be superior in PvE just because of how fast it goes off. And for PvP, I personally like to take it also. I don't think we're really short on super armor. And similar to the high damage Meteor, this Residual Lightning allows us to get a lot of damage off in combos. It does a lot of damage very quickly. Like for example, after what do I want to do? Floating into this. Yeah, you see what I mean. That wasn't actually a very good combo. But the point is, after you CC someone, you can do that and then do other extenders afterward. It does not eat up the entire timing of your combo, or after a single knockdown, you can actually get that all the way into the lightning storm off. I will a lot of times do that after the second knockdown of a combo if the Meteor is not off cooldown. So again, first knockdown, potato on the second knockdown. And it's really nice. I wish that these would have PvP CC mechanics. But oh well. My guinea pig had to go, so yeah. So yeah, anyways, with the Residual Lightning, this one I have right now is a clear winner for PvE, but for PvP, I personally prefer it. Though I would understand why, especially in certain matchups, you might want the protected one. So yep, on to Lightning Storm now. What was I going to say? Oh yeah, that's what I was going to say. The other thing that I did to make sure not to is if you get a first knockdown, don't use this one after a first knockdown because it will inflict bound, which is a shorter CC. So only use that one when they've already reached your CC limit. So for example, like after a freeze, and then into a knockdown, and then like go ahead and use it. So anyways, now onto the Lightning Storm one. This is another extremely tricky one. Me and my friend were actually discussing this yesterday. The 2 options you have, one of them is a multi-part skill. I'm going to hotkey it just because you can, and it's very useful when hotkeyed in PvP because it does an immediate range stiffen attempt, which can be followed up with a knockdown. Now, it may seem like it was a clear winner for PvE, but that's not the case for a few reasons. First reason, just like our normal Lightning Storm, it's very prone to desynciness, and opponents don't usually stand here like these do. The second reason is we have a lot of super armor, but we lack front guard, except for Meteor, Equilibrium Break, and this. But with this one, you can actually hold the front guard until your stamina runs out. And yep, it's a really nice front guard because of that. Is it until stamina runs out? I don't know if there's a limit on. Oh no, I guess there's a limit on how I can hold it. I thought it was stamina gated. So I guess you can hold it for like 4 seconds or so. Oops. Learn something new every day. It drains stamina, but that is not the only limiting factor. If you can hold it for 4 seconds or so. and this one does not do CC. They both do about the same damage per time on target. So either of these would work for PvE. I personally prefer this one in both PvE and PvP. And by the way, even though you saw it charging up, you cannot... Oh, oops. It didn't go quite as planned. Even though you saw it charging up, you cannot cancel the cast bar like you can of Residual by doing the combo. Like that. You still have the cast bar. So it's not cancelable, but oh well, it's fine. So yeah, I personally prefer that one just because we lack a lot of forward guard. So I guess the pros of this one in PvP, the first one that I don't take in PvP would be immediate long-range stiffen attempt, which is useful as a poke, it's useful as a combo initiator. You could even use it after a bound to stiffen someone as kind of a combo extender, but then depending on what you want to do after that, that may limit your choices if you want to do lightning afterward. In fact, honestly, in some matchups, I would definitely take this. For example, against a warrior, you know how a lot of warriors are very predictable with their spear throw thingy? It's really satisfying when you know that the warrior is coming toward you and you're like, nope. And the spear throw is a projectile, whereas this is a hit scan. So if you CC the warrior with a stiffen, it will actually cancel their projectile even if they get it off. As long as you CC them before the projectile registers a hit on you. So yeah, and honestly, even though I like the other one, in some matchups I would definitely, probably definitely take this one. Maybe probably definitely take this one. Now the pros of this one are forward guard. And that's pretty much it, but that's a pretty big pro also. So now, and in PvE it really doesn't matter. I'm sure there are slight differences in damage per time on target. This one does a little bit more damage all at once. This one does, but yeah, it's very similar. I'd have to like frame by frame it probably to know if there are any subtle differences. And forward guard is nice in PvE. So anyways, now on to Earthquake. Earthquake, you have two options. The first one dodges you backwards, and the Earthquake is cancelable on or not on cooldown as long as... Okay, this one's kind of weird. If the Earthquake is not on cooldown, you cannot use the Earthquake itself to cancel an Awakening skill or a Succession skill. Or if the Earthquake is off cooldown, you can use the Earthquake itself. But whether it's on or off cooldown, you can use the dodge to cancel it. This one, as you probably guessed, because not only does it have super armor, but it moves you. Not only does it have super armor and move you, but it does a stiffness in PvP. I think they both do... Yeah, they both do. But this one is very nice for stiffness. It is a really nice follow-up into other things, or you can be like, oh, I'm going to bait someone by doing something like that, or something like that. I hope you're able to mass move it on live server. So honestly, this one does more damage. Neither of them do that much damage. They're not damaging skills. But in PvP, this one is very, 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 very much a clear winner. For me, because of how useful disengages are in PvP. So yep, this one is... Honestly, at this point in time, I can't see any reason why someone would want to take the other Earthquake. In PvE, I like it. You can cast it twice, and it's a really nice vacuum. So I'd say this one is a clear winner for PvE, does more damage, and this one's a clear winner for PvP, it moves you. And also this one cannot be used when the cooldown is here. Honestly, I used to use this one sometimes in PvE because what I do in Histria is after I pulled the pack together and put the evasion debuff on it, I would use this to position myself and then, yeah. Actually, I usually use it to position and then cancel. I think I tried to do that, messed it up earlier. But that would be kind of finicky, and a lot of times it wouldn't move me. I think I would get caught on a feature on the ground, so it could be very useful for that in some PvE spots. That's to be determined. I don't know how reliable that's going to be, so just keep that in mind. Honestly, this one's going to be spot dependent. Aukmen, use the vacuum. Sucraya or Hystria, if it could be reliable, I'd use the one that moves me. Maybe I just need to learn the positioning of everything better, but who knows. Now, Earth's Response. Both of them have super armor. This one has a hard cooldown, meaning you cannot continually cast it. That happens if you try. It used to have Stiffen, but they removed it. It has a very long range. It takes a little bit longer to cast, and it moves you a lot farther. And it also does a movement speed debuff on the target, which I don't... Yeah, this one doesn't do it. I would say it has more damage, but that doesn't really matter in Earth's Response, I guess. Now this other one does floating on good hits when the cooldown is not here. It has a soft cooldown and super armor. And as you probably guessed, I would strongly prefer this one for PvP. As, yeah, we have a lot of amazing options with that. And for PvE, the reason I prefer the other one is I consider it useful for after I debuff the target for positioning. And also because, well, I mean, you can do it with either ones, but this one moves you farther. You can cancel abilities off of the Earth's Response. So that's really nice to use that to position instead of a dodge, because you cannot cancel an ability from the dodge, but you can cancel it from the Earth's Response. So yep, in PvE, I prefer this one. Now, onto the Blizzard. This one is the one that can be cast, and it just kind of stays there. It does AP minus 16 debuff, and it does movement speed minus 30% for 10 seconds. I'm trying to remember. Oh, I remember what I was going to say about it. Sorry, I'm a little bit dreaming today, if you can't tell. But this one, as you probably guessed, does a lot less damage than this one, as it should. The damage is split like the old Blizzard and split like this one. There's no defensive utility while casting it. Has a shorter cooldown. I personally like, what's the word? I personally like the other one more than I like this one. Though I'm sure that in, I don't know, because this one doesn't do the debuff anymore. I think it still does do the debuff. I don't remember if it does the frozen debuff. Okay, but anyways, I'm sure this one will depend on if you're doing large group PvP, maybe you would prefer this one, versus if you're doing 1v1, this one would be nice for kind of area denial type stuff. Neither of them are that good in PvE, as they both seem to have, this one, I don't know about this one, almost spoke too soon. This one seems to have split damage in PvE. Actually, let's try that now, because that's something I have not tried, both of them. Yeah, anyways, in PvP, again, it really comes down to personal preference, but talking a little bit about the pros and cons after I do this. Let's see. Nope, looks like this one probably does not have split damage in PvE. Though the damage per time on target is not very good if you compare that to the damage the rest of our stuff does, so that probably doesn't matter to you. So back to talking about it in PvP, since PvE has a lot of clear winners and losers. So in PvP, the pros of this Blizzard that I like to take are, actually I want to show you one right now. Oops. How much longer? 10 seconds. Actually, I'll talk about the pros of this one first. Well, forward guard wall casting is a bit of a pro, and you can hold the forward guard too there, I think. The higher damage is a pro. The duration, I think it lasts a bit longer, is a pro. It's very similar to the old Blizzard. I think it does a little bit less damage actually than the old Blizzard. A little bit less similar, at least in PvE it was a bit less. Now, this one that I personally prefer, the cons of it are no protection, a lot less damage. The pros of it are, of course, the debuffs it does, and the fact that it stays there and you don't have to worry about it. Now, the reason I like that is you can freeze someone, put the Blizzard on them, and then continue the combo as the freeze breaks. So you can treat it similar to how you would treat your lava before. I was about to say lava or poison, but then I remembered which probably can't make use of it. And it's kind of nice to just put there because people are more scared of it than they should be, kind of like the lava. So you put it down and people are like, oh, I'm not getting anywhere near that. And you're like, thank you for letting all of my cooldowns be ready again. So that's why I like that one. Now the Frigid Fog, you have two options. One does the movement speed slow, and it has a little bit of range, not that much though. It looks like this. And it's cancelable just like the other things. I think it has a shorter cooldown. I personally don't prefer this one just because, I mean, both of them have super armor, they have the same defensive utility. I like Frigid Fog just because a freeze hit trade is really threatening, and freeze is a nice way to start a combo off. I very strongly prefer this one, but again, I'm sure there would be many nice reasons to prefer this one. I mean, if this one did movement speed, cast, and attack speed minus 50%, then I think it would be a much stronger contender. But currently, in my eyes, in PvP, this one is going to be a clear winner. Maybe I'll have different thoughts on it when I get to have more experience with Succession, though, who knows. Now, talking about the awakening skills that we can choose from. We can choose between Aqua Gel and Equilibrium Break, pros and cons of each. The pros of Aqua Gel, the defensive utility is different. I won't list that one as a pro or a con. Because of course, as you know, super armor is better in some cases, front guard is better in others. One thing I really like about this is if you freeze a target and then try to do Voltaic, that's going to bound them and it's going to eat the second CC. It bounds them while they're in the freeze. But you can freeze someone and then do this for the evasion debuff and then continue the combo. However you see fit, which is going to be very useful against high evasion people. Now the Equilibrium Break, it does, the damage per time on target seems similar. This one casts a lot faster, especially when cancelled, but it does less damage. However, this one has a front guard, and you can linger the front guard until the animation ends. So the lingering front guard lasts around there. When I said there, that's around when it'll end. Neither of them do PvP CC. This one does an all AP minus 10 debuff. This one does a movement speed debuff and an evasion debuff. So of course this one seems to have better debuffs on it, but it also has the cons of having super armor, which we seem to have enough of already in some cases, and the con of taking a lot longer to cast. Like, you're pretty much just gonna die if you try to hit trade like a warrior with this, let's say. And a lot of it depends on, like for me, I would be more inclined to take this because I use the front guard option for my lightning, but at the same time that one has a pretty long cooldown, so I don't know. I have kind of mixed thoughts on this. To me it's again matchup dependent. Against a ranger, for example, I might be more inclined to take this, Whereas against a ninja or a mystic or a stroker who's hybrid who I might not be able to kill without an evasion debuff, I'd be more inclined to take this. Now for a Bolide versus, in PvE, a lot of it will depend on your CC needs and on whether or not you like to evasion debuff them with this other skill. You want to keep at least one evasion debuff in PvE and in PvP. So anyways, Bolide versus Voltaic Pulse. In PvE, if you need the evasion debuff from Voltaic, get that. If you don't, go with Bolide, just because of the niceness of the damage of Bolide. And it casts very quickly, as you see. It does nice damage and it casts quickly. It's not that this doesn't do nice damage, this just does nicer damage. I guess this does cast a little faster too. Honestly, maybe the damage per time on target isn't that different. I prefer to take Voltaic in PvE, just because I prefer also to take Equilibrium Break, so it lets me have the evasion debuff and still have my nice Equilibrium Break. And again, when it comes to PvE, personal preference, but when it comes to PvP, it's pretty clear this one's the winner, and I don't really think I need to try to justify my decision. Maybe I actually do, because this one does have the added utility now of down smash. The reason that I don't go with this one is Wizard. Okay, so we rely on pressuring people from range, and we don't want it to be easy to engage us. So what is it that we're able to do when someone engages us close range? The way we protect ourselves is having fast things that we can use to be, well, very scary to them. Like, let's say what's a good example? Okay, a good example is any class that has to be close to you to do damage. Let's say a Musa or a Meiwa. If all you can do is hit trade them with things that don't CC them, then they're just going to either be able to damage you through it, or worse yet, a grab class can grab you through it. But if they know that if they're close range, they could be bound very quickly or frozen very quickly, then that's very scary for them. And you can't rely on having your Frigid Fog ready because of the cooldown being very large. 10 seconds on that one. Whereas this one only has 6 seconds, I think. Yep, 6 seconds. It also does a CC, which is of course quite scary, and the evasion debuff, which is very nice. Oh yeah, and the cast speed buff, I forgot about that. I don't think this one does that. Yeah, it doesn't. So for a combo extender, I could definitely see this one being nice, but as long as your damage is sufficient, I tend to not really like down smash that much if you don't have to rely on it, just because a 30% proc rate isn't really that great, and we deal with our CCs being resisted enough with relying on knockdown so much. Now, should I go over the raw? Oh, I guess I'll go over the raw bombs. PvE, Speedquake, winner. PvP, neither of them are really that good, to be honest. I do Lightning Quake just because it's a slow to them, and I like slowing people. Now this one I want to talk about, well, I probably don't need to talk that much about it, but I was talking to someone, I just want to make sure to clear this up, who said, oh, we can take the heal now because we have so much damage and CC with our succession. But that's not necessarily the case, because even though we do have nice damage and some nice CC, we are short on knockdowns. We don't have a low cooldown water sphere and everything, so it may be very important, let's say if you get a first knockdown off, to have a second knockdown with your raw bomb. So yeah, the raw bomb as a combo extender is something that's incredibly valuable, because if you don't have that, let's say you get a CC off, you get a hit off, you have to rely either on a bound. Not only that, a bound only works at close range, or you have to rely on a risky stun on get up, which is not only an inferior CC, but really easy for that not to work well. And also this tends to be on cooldown a lot since we use our lightning a lot. So yeah, I still very strongly recommendify in anything other than group PvP to have this skill. And if you're in one of those gross guilds who doesn't like this skill, then you can have this one if you really want it. Is there any other skill I missed? No, I think I got every skill. So yes, I hope that was informative. And yep, that's all I guess.